She wasn't asking for much, just a normal day, a safe walk, a quiet breath in her own neighborhood. But sometimes, even existing in the wrong place at the wrong time is enough to draw suspicion. A glance became a whisper became an accusation, and before she could understand why, the world around her turned hostile. Was it her skin, her presence, or simply their fear? What happened next wasn't just about one woman, it revealed a truth many choose to ignore. But what began as a quiet walk home was about to spiral into a nightmare she could never have imagined. For Maya, routine was everything. She woke early, caught the bus downtown, and worked long shifts up at clinic before heading home. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, steady, dependable. The kind that let her pay rent on time and save a little for her younger brother's school fees. She loved the quiet moments after a long day, walking the familiar path back to her apartment, earbuds in, city lights flickering above. It was her time to breathe, to feel safe in a world that often wasn't. But safety is fragile. Sometimes it's just an illusion. That night, the streets seemed the same, but the stairs lingered longer. A group near the corner stopped talking when she passed. A man across the street pulled out his phone, eyes locked on her as if she didn't belong. She felt it, the weight of attention, the shift in the air. She quickened her pace, clutching her bag a little tighter. Nothing had happened yet, but she knew what her gut was telling her. Trouble doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it creeps in quietly, step by step, until it surrounds you. Because the real danger wasn't what she saw, it was what she didn't see coming. Maya had no way of knowing that this walk home, the same walk she'd taken 100 times before, was about to expose a truth she couldn't ignore. A truth about how quickly ordinary life can be interrupted, and how easily a simple walk can turn into a fight for dignity, for safety, and for justice. At first, Maya thought she could brush it off the stairs. The silence, the way conversations seemed to pause when she passed. But the longer she walked, the more undeniable it became. Every step echoed with a tension she couldn't shake. Behind her, the man with the phone kept following, his camera tilted just high enough to suggest he was recording. Across the street, another man adjusted his jacket and muttered something under his breath, just loud enough for her to hear the word suspicious. Her chest tightened. Suspicious? For what? She was carrying nothing more than a tote bag and her scrubs from work. Still, their eyes tracked her like she was trespassing in her own city. She told herself to stay calm, to keep moving. But calm is hard to hold on to when the world is watching you like a criminal. But calm only works until the crowd decides you're guilty. The sound of footsteps quickened, not hers. She glanced back and saw the man with the phone walking faster now, his gaze locked on her. Then came the voice, sharp and commanding. "Hey, what are you doing here?" Her heart skipped. She didn't answer. She kept walking, but ignoring wasn't enough. A second voice joined in from the corner, another man, this one in a neighborhood watch vest. "Stop right there," he barked. People were gathering now, curious faces peeking from doorways and windows. The quiet street had turned into a stage, and she was at the center. What do you do when a neighborhood turns into a courtroom and you're the accused? Maya froze. She wanted to shout, to explain, to demand why she was being cornered. But fear clamped her throat. Any wrong move could be twisted against her. She raised her hand slightly, trying to show she had nothing to hide. Still, the accusations kept coming. You don't belong here. Where are you going? Show us some ID. Each word cut deeper than the last. She was no longer just Maya, the hardworking woman heading home. In their eyes, she was a threat, a suspect, a problem to be handled. Someone pulled out a phone, live streaming the moment. Another called the police. Her private walk home had been turned into a public trial, with strangers as jury and executioner. She could feel her body trembling, every nerve on fire, and then sirens. The distant wail grew louder, closer, until red and blue lights flashed against the street. Relief? No. Her fear only spiked. She knew how quickly things could escalate when uniforms entered the scene, because sometimes the people you expect to protect you are the ones you fear most. The crowd stepped back, whispering, recording, waiting for the spectacle to unfold. Maya stood alone in the center of it all, heart pounding so hard she thought it might break her ribs. She wasn't sure which was worse, the men circling her or the officers who were about to arrive, because in that moment, one thing was terrifyingly clear. This wasn't just about tonight. This was about every story like hers, every headline, every name turned into a statistic. And deep down, she feared she might be next. The flashing lights painted the street in red and blue, bouncing off windows, blinding her in bursts. The crowd parted as the officers stepped out, hands already near their holsters. One of them shouted, "Ma'am, put your hands where we can see them." Maya's arms shot up instinctively, trembling in the cold night air. She wanted to scream, "I'm not a threat. I just want to go home." But the words lodged in her throat. All she could hear was the pounding of her heart. The echo of stories she had read too many times lives ended in moments just like this. The officer moved closer, his shadow stretching long across the pavement. "What are you doing here? Who called this in?" His tone wasn't curious. It was accusatory, sharp, already convinced she didn't belong. Behind him, another officer circled, scanning her bag as if expecting contraband. Phones recorded every second. The crowd watched like spectators at a trial, whispering, pointing. Not one voice rose to defend her. Not one face looked at her as human. She was reduced to a silhouette beneath flashing lights, guilty until proven innocent. And then it happened. A single movement that could decide whether she walked home or became another headline. Her knees weakened, and for a second, she thought she might collapse. Then one officer's hand twitched toward his belt. The gesture froze her blood. Was this it? Would one sudden movement, one panicked breath, turn this into her last night alive? She forced herself to stay still, her voice breaking as she finally whispered, "Please, I live here. I'm just trying to get home." The words hung in the air, swallowed by sirens and silence. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. The officers, the crowd, even the wind seemed to hold its breath, because in that fragile pause lay two possibilities: mercy or tragedy, and no one, least of all Maya, knew which one the night would choose. The officers eventually lowered their voices. One checked her ID, the other glanced at the crowd, suddenly aware of the dozens of phones recording. After a tense silence, they stepped back, muttering something about a misunderstanding. No apology. No acknowledgement. just the hollow dismissal of a threat they themselves had created. Maya walked home that night, but every step carried the weight of what had happened. The street was the same, the lights the same, yet nothing felt familiar anymore. What should have been a simple walk had turned into a reminder that her safety could be stripped away at any moment, not because of her actions, but because of her skin. She didn't sleep much after that. The fear replayed in her mind, but so did the anger. Anger that a neighborhood could turn on her in an instant. Anger that the people sworn to protect her were the ones who made her feel most unsafe. And anger that her story wasn't unique. It was part of a cycle too many have lived. Too many have not survived. That night changed Maya, but it also reveals something bigger. Racism doesn't always come crashing down in headlines. Sometimes it hides in whispers, in suspicious glances, in the silence of neighbors who choose not to speak up. And every silence allows the cycle to continue. So the real question is, how many more stories like Maya's will we ignore before it's too late? Because until the day comes when safety belongs to everyone, no one's walk home is truly free.